Hi guys, welcome back to the check-in. I'm going to talk about a rather controversial topic. Not so much controversial. Uh, well, the topic actually isn't that controversial, but just let this plane pass. Yeah, that does get annoying after a while. So, the topic I'm going to talk about today is actually about immigration, Thai immigration. I've sort of covered this a little bit before, and the reason it's controversial, like I said, the topic of Thai immigration is not controversial, but the fact that I'm in Thailand talking about this is potentially controversial and potentially could land me into some shit. So I guess I'll have to be careful about how I put this across. Let me just first say that I respect Thailand and the culture in Thailand. However, that doesn't mean that everything that happens here and the way that foreigners are treated over here is fair or right. Now, if Thailand authorities, the tourism board, the authorities, tourism authority, wants foreigners to come here, let's start there. For foreigners to actually come to Thailand, they're going to have to change the system. They're going to have to change the way that, and I don't mean by tightening things up even more. I'm sorry that my face is cut to shreds here and there. By the way, it's because I tend to shave daily now, and I come out in a rash. I probably should change the blade really. So apologies for that. It really matters, but anyway, the problem is that it appears to me that in some form or other, the immigration, or rather some heads within immigration at the very top, or some high-ranking people within the immigration have been bought out. That's what seems to be happening. That's what seems to have happened to me, which is why so much implementation of or enforcement of laws that wasn't really enforced, even though they're actually in law, and now being enforced, which they weren't before. You see, the problem is, if you're going to have law, then the law is there to be enforced, or it shouldn't be in law. Now, if the law is old and it's not really followed, then you should scrap it because it's not law anymore. If you're not using it, then it can't be justified as you can't just turn around all of a sudden after years of not using it and suddenly say, oh, we're going to use it now because it's at our advantage to use it now. It wasn't then. Well, no, that's not how law works. I'm afraid law is law. And, anybody watching this come and say, well, it's not your country, David. You're not a citizen. Yeah, and that's true. And I get that and I see that point of view. But the problem is, all of this is putting off foreigners from the first thing is a lot of foreigners aren't coming here anymore because they're getting word from their friends that used to come here or are here now, and are sharing the stories back home with their friends or whatever, family, about what's going on and how things have changed here and how strict things are becoming now. And look, and I'm not saying for one second that things didn't need to change over here, because they did. They very much did need to change, and in some ways probably it's a positive thing in the long term that for Thailand and Thai culture and everything, that things have changed, and in that way I am glad that it has been tightened up. But the problem is that there's not enough transparency, and it seems to me that it's solely down to it seems to be more about discretion of enforcement rather than actual following the law to the letter. Law. Law is there to keep order and to make immigration law, that is there to make sure that immigration is run in a non-discriminatory way, really, an unbiased manner. It's supposed to be there to make things fair for everybody, and to clamp out all of those people that are doing things illegally and whatever. And you could turn around and say to me, you're a bit of a hypocrite for making this video, taking things into consideration. Now, yeah, that's true. However, if it was a case that if things were easier, you see, what I think is this. For starters, they need to get rid of the 3-month tourist visa thing. You see, I think there's a couple of things that are going on here. I think there's an element of paranoia. There's an element of criminal activity going on between citizens, nationalities that are close by to Thailand. Like, and in that, what I mean by that is people that come into Thailand for work from like the Burmese, the Khmer, the Lao, people from Lao. Even Malaysia, and Vietnam as well. So I think one of the reasons that there's been such a clampdown in immigration is partly because of the sheer numbers of people coming now, probably because of the reason in the last couple of years a massive reduction in flights, budget airlines and so forth, and also because of the exchange rate as well. However, that seems to be massively declining and rapidly declining with regards to the pound and the dollar, the US dollar, I think Australian dollar as well, and the euro. So I think in some ways, perhaps, this is just my opinion, one of the reasons that they can now be all of a sudden strict and suddenly, put enforcement or put emphasis on things that wasn't even really taken into consideration before in regards to law, is because they can do it now. Before, they needed the foreigners to be here. They needed those level of numbers, and things were relaxed because they could be, because there was so much money was coming in that the corruption was sort of justified, really. But now, because you've got different people in charge, a whole new so-called, image of Thailand, image of tourism, image of immigration, because everything's image over here, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It seems to me that it's more about saving face a lot of time, which is why the laws haven't been enforced before and why they are suddenly being enforced now, or in some cases still aren't being enforced, or won't be enforced, or will be reversed in the future. So you've got new people in charge, people with new ideas. Some people would like to change things for the better, some people wouldn't, people want to keep things the same. The truth of it is that no matter what happens, the corruption will always be there. Because there's just so much money involved in it. So no matter what happens, no matter how much change or non-change happens, there'll always be corruption. And I think also one of the major impacts that's affecting Europeans, one of the major things is the currency exchange rates at the moment, which are terrible. But with globalization, with a country that's not too far away, like China, that's on the economically speaking on the rise and on in the rise to power, really, and more influence across Asia and with ASEAN and with the world, certainly some of the major world players in terms of Europe and America, Commonwealth even. So you've got China so Thailand's got is I think one of the biggest things that I can't prove it because I'm not an expert and I'm not really a follower of trade and business, but from what I've been reading and from what I've heard from other people that do know more than I do in regards to some of those things, is that it's part of the reason on the clampdown of things over here is because of the relationship with China, Korea, Japan, and ASEAN. I think definitely there's no doubt about it that there is definitely something going on. Um, with China, because in recent years there's been an explosion in Chinese package tours, group tours, and I think that one of the things that's happening is it's the image of trying to make it look like immigration being progressive and trying to be serious about its its place in Asia and its relationship and its security and stability. But I think in my opinion, what the truth is that Thailand's, for the moment at least, in my opinion, is that it's being backed into a corner in regards to financial investment, import, export, business links, money, basically. I think that's what's happening. It seems to me that Thailand's almost sold out in certain areas. It's kind of sold out to, just like it did. The people say that technically Thailand was never colonized, but like my ex used to say, in some other ways it was colonized, and I think that's probably true. Business wise, economically, with regards to manufacturing, it's I think it probably did. You see, immigration can do what the fuck it wants, and fair enough. That's like I said, it's Thailand. It's the people that live here and work here, whatever. Most of the people are just doing what they do. Like I said, a lot of the culture is about saving face. So a lot of people don't challenge things. They don't ask questions that need to be asked, or don't give answers that need to be given. But so a lot of the time, we as foreigners over here don't have a leg to stand on, and that's not a coincidence. That's deliberate. It's a case of it's Thai style, it's Thai way, or it's on your way basically. And I get that, but that doesn't do much for the image. If everything's about image, they certainly aren't helping themselves. Well, the people that are business owners, people that have serious hands in the banks and major businesses over here and abroad, should be very worried about what's happening, because a lot of people start to pull out investment and money in property, in all sorts of different ways that kind of partly keeps us, the GDP afloat in this country. I mean, of course, you've got agriculture as well, but I think as time goes on, and I think that Thailand is doing something very, very silly in that it's basically allowing so much of its land and that applies to foreign investment and foreign ownership of things in some ways as well. Well, part, not complete because you can't own anything, but part ownership. Like very much like England, I respect the fact that Thailand wants to keep the elements of tradition and the culture here, and that's great, and I'm all for that. Given what's happened in England over the last couple of decades, we should be in some ways taking a leaf or two out of Thailand's book. But the world is what it is now, and everybody wants to travel, and most people want to travel, and because, like I said, because of low cost airlines or low cost flights that are popping up all over the place now, the world is much smaller. It's much easier to get around. It's faster to get around than ever before, mainly because of the major hubs, airport hubs. but ultimately, I think in the long term, I think that there will be some very serious consequences of what's happening now. If the policy just needs to change, it's all over the place. It's this office does things this way. This immigration office does this a completely different way. You know, if it's going to work, it needs to be across the board. It can't just be a what. Well, they do whatever the fuck they want to do. We do whatever the fuck we want to do, and that's it. You know, well, what about this image thing that you're trying to portray? I mean, I thought it was supposed to be about being serious and being taken, professionally, and to try and gain some respect from, the people that use or were abusing the system or tried to use the system. Like I said, I get that in terms of like the visa runs and stuff and all that kind of and tourist visas, things did need to be clamped down on, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But the problem is that there's not a lot of other options. I mean, if you want to stay here and you've got money, it's like a case of, well, what other options do you really have? It's a case of either getting married to a Thai woman, retirement, or an elite. I believe you can get an elite visa if you've got a shitload of money. I think you can get a retirement visa after 50. But so what I'm getting at here is there's not, unless you've got a degree or some kind of business or something, or some shitload of money. There's not a lot of other options left for foreigners, and you can say, well, that's good because that means that weeds out all the people that don't have enough money. Well, no, that's not true, because there's people out there that do have money and have enough at least to support themselves for a couple of months or even a year or two, but don't want to they don't want to get married, they don't want to invest in a property or whatever. They just want to stay here for a year or something, just to travel around. You say, well, yeah, but that's not you're not a tourist. Well, okay, fine. Well, then why don't you make a visa a tourism type visa or something of those lines, or something where you can work, where you don't need a degree, where you can work in some capacity or can do something, or even volunteer, or some. There needs to be more options on the table is what I'm saying. The problem is there isn't. It's very limited, and unless you've got a shitload of money, or you've got the right contacts, or you've got a Thai wife, or like I said, the right people, there's no foundation for you there now. Nothing. You're fucked basically. If you get denied, if you want to stay here for a year or something like that, and as a tourist, whether it is just for sex, whether it is just for getting drunk, it doesn't fucking matter. It's none of anybody else's business as long as you're abiding by the law, and spending money in the local economy, in the wider economy. It doesn't fucking matter. It's nobody else's business. If you've met all the requirements for your visa and you aren't breaking any laws, then it's nobody else's business what you do in the country. And if you are breaking laws and you are doing things wrong, then the police should deal with you swiftly and get rid of you and blacklist you if necessary, or at least remove you for a while. This is the problem. Is Thai immigration is basically throwing everybody under the bus because of a not that big of a sized group of people that have done things wrong. And I'm not perfect. I've done things wrong as well. I've done things here I shouldn't have done. Okay, I agree. I admit that, but I've never done anything major. Certainly haven't broken any real major laws or anything. I haven't killed anybody. I haven't done anything, in that way. I've done okay. I have worked, but I've added to people's lives here. I've done, because yeah, but you still did it. You shouldn't have done it. Yeah, well, I wouldn't have done if there was more options on the table. If you didn't need a degree, it would be a lot easier. The problem is, everything's about you must meet these requirements. You must meet this, and this. Well, how about why don't you make more opportunities for people to come here? If you make more opportunities for people without degrees and things like that, and they've got proof they can show that they can get sponsored, or they've got enough money in a bank account or whatever, you can show that you've got enough money for your stay, then give people opportunities, and even if you aren't rich, give people a chance to fucking do something, to enrich to be teachers. the amount of people I met that had degrees weren't very particularly good teachers anyway. You know, I'm sorry, but it's not about it. Yeah, I get the idea of why having a degree might be more appealing to schools on paper, but in reality, a lot of the people aren't teachers and they don't have any experience. Just because you've got a TESOL or TEFL certificate doesn't mean shit, really. It might help, but ultimately, until you get in that classroom, until you get into an actual school or whatever, it doesn't matter. No matter how much theory you do and stuff on paper, or how many exams you pass, or how many certificates you got, it's irrelevant. Because ultimately, real life is different, and especially with regards to education of it, it's very different. Very different. And nothing can you really prepare for anywhere. So in that regard, and that's not what this video was intended to just be about that, but in what's one way in which I think that things could be better over here if there was more opportunities for people that don't have degrees that could potentially offer something, give people a year or something. Why don't you give people, say the tourist visa thing? They say, well, a tourist, after 3 months, you're not a tourist. Well, okay. Well, what about all the other previous years then? When you was allowing people through the border 50 times a year, back-to-back tourist visas for 6 years or what, you can't just suddenly turn around all of a sudden after not giving a fuck and not enforcing laws that were in place, and then suddenly say, this is enforced, this is coming to law, when there's nothing written anywhere, and there's not been any notice, there's nothing on any of the embassies, and it's on the website. Well, not everybody checks the website, not everybody's got that. It's not about it. It should be at the embassy, at the consulate. People don't, not everybody checks the website. So, there's no clarity. That's the problem. There's not enough clarity. There's not enough there's people, and even the websites aren't updated regularly or swiftly anywhere. So it doesn't matter if it's on the website. And even if it is on the website, things can change anywhere. Today something could be updated on the website, and then tomorrow it'll come off, or something will be even tighter or more relaxed. And this is the thing in Thailand. Things change so much that it's discretionary law. It's basically up to the officer on the day whether they like what you've got to say or not, whether they believe you, whether they like how you look. So it's discriminatory, it's judgmental, it's not based upon your documents, your documentation. It's based on interrogation and whether they believe in it. Because, well, yeah, that's part of the job. Yes, it is. But if your story holds up and you've got the right documentation, everything to prove, and you've not done anything majorly wrong, you shouldn't have any problems. And it's not just people that are here even on short stays, even if it's for a year or whatever it is. People that have been here for 5 years, 10 years are still getting shit. Regards to retirement visas, marriage visas, even people, how many hurdles, this is why there's so much corruption, because of all the hurdles and bullshit that you've got to go through, jump through, to get anything done over here. To be legal is, in some ways, to be legal is to be corrupt. None of it makes any fucking sense. There's no logic to it. Now it sounds like I'm being, rude and disrespectful, and I'm sorry that it comes across like that, but this is the truth. It's not working, Thailand. I'm sorry, but it's not working. It's not going to work out for you. These people that have been here 50... I've met people. I met a guy just the other day who's been here for, I think, 15 years, I believe. Lives in Buriram. Spent millions of baht. Millions upon millions of baht of the years into the economy, into Buriram. Invested in properties, help build a condo in, I think, Phuket. If you want those people to just suddenly say, fuck it, I don't give a shit anymore, this is not worth it, then that's up to you. That's up to you. If you want to sell out to the Japanese, the Koreans and Chinese until those economies don't need you anymore, that's up to you. Because at some point, things will change, and at some point you'll be wanting help from Europe again. You'll be wanting the return to the old days of, massive amounts of, expats and foreigners coming into the country. But the way things are going on, that's going to just completely halt. It's going to stop. If that's what you want, that's up to you. It's up to you. But then don't turn around when your economy collapses, because it will. You got to remember, in the next couple of decades, agriculture, reliance on it is going to drop massively in terms of the old ways of doing things. If you want to carry on with this authoritarian dictatorial regime, you go ahead. But I'm telling you, it won't work out for you.